Today, I'm building out a set of BRZ heart taillights. This is an illumaesthetic kit that is designed to work with the GT86 platform using the OEM taillights as a base housing. First thing I'm gonna show you is the tools that I use. First thing that you're gonna need is obviously an illumaesthetic kit, which is going to come with the boards, LEDs, and a dimmer module for the parking light. Now, we are building these a little bit different than how they normally come. Normally, this heart here is red and these three are amber. That's how it's listed on the website, but the customer requested that we do all red, which I'm excited about. I think that's gonna look a lot better. And since we're doing all red, I actually don't need this dimmer module. Instead, we're gonna use this Corso motion module. It is a sequential turn signal module. It controls the turn, brake, and park. BRZs don't have the reverse lights in their taillights. They're down in the bumper, so that is perfect for this setup. Next thing that we're gonna need is some sort of soldering iron. This is just a really cheap one that I have found on Amazon. I think it was like $9. Next up, we're gonna need some solder, also found on Amazon. Some wire strippers, some snips. Lastly, we need some wire. I just leave these on the rack. This is a basic one color setup, so we're really only gonna need power and ground. Are gonna need some BRZ taillights, but I'm not pulling those out of the box yet. Now that I've gotten all of the tools together and all the parts, I can officially start working on these. First thing that we need to do is mark up the back so that we know exactly where to put our resistors. So the plan for this is to have these hearts separated in half until I get to the very big heart, which as you can see is split into 4. I've already wired up these 2 on this first heart just so I could get a game plan going, figure out how I want to do it. They're all going to be red and they're all going to be wired up to the Corso motion module, and it's going to start here and go this way for the turn signal. The brake and park are just going to light up like normal, but the sequential turn is going to start here and go out. Now I need to install all of the LEDs and all the resistors and get everything wired up. Normally, whenever I build an illumaesthetic kit, I go ahead and mark off each section that is going to have a resistor. It would be like a pack of 3 or 4 LEDs, and I would go ahead and mark what resistor should go there, whether that's the 120 or the 270 or something like that. I would mark that right here. But since each of these heart packs are different, I didn't want to do that because it would start to get really confusing. All of these LEDs are really close together, so it would be kind of hard to see and it would get really confusing for me. So I'm doing it one pack at a time. So for here, you can actually see I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. And then up here, I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is gonna be 2 different resistors and then 1 resistor. And we finally have all of these LEDs installed. It takes quite a bit of time to get all of these LEDs installed and wired up, but it's finally done. All of this wiring we are about to clean up and make it look really pretty, but first I want to get this Corso motion module onto the board. That way, while we are cleaning up this wiring, it will cure up and not move anymore. What I've learned is if you can glue your module to the board that you're building, you should try to. It just helps clean up the entire install. What I've tried to do in the past is glue the module to the back housing, but if you ever need to service the light for any reason, it makes it really difficult in the future. Having it directly on here on the board where all the wires are going to be contained to just this board minus your 3 turn signal, park, and brake wires, it's so much easier to work with. Not always possible, but when it is possible, I like to do it this way. We have the perfect spot for this module right here on this board, completely out of the way of everything. Now it's time to clean up this wiring. And this is fully wired up, ready to be installed into the back housing. All 4 of these wires are gonna go out of the back housing so that we can wire it up to the OEM harness and make it completely plug and play. I am gonna add a little bit of glue on some of these LEDs because it's kind of loose. I don't want them to fall out while the customer is driving. And I wanted to show you the functions of the light. So we got parking light right here, turn signal, and brake. I know someone's gonna ask what happens if you hit your turn signal while you're braking. This is what it does. It's a switchback, so it turns on, let go, goes back to brake. The inner housings are totally painted and are waiting for the boards. The boards are gluing right now. I want to make sure that these LEDs don't fall out, so just add a couple of dots of glue all over them. Now what I'm going to do is cut open this light while those are curing. Okay, the taillight is officially open all the way. I don't even know what we're gonna do with those because we're gonna build off of this inner house. These boards are cured up enough to actually start working on them. And the way that I'm actually going to get these boards to sit inside of this housing is by using this foam tape. I've got this bulk roll of foam tape and I've trimmed what I think is going to be enough to go around the edge of this light. So it's a little bit thick right now, but whenever I trim it down a little bit more, I'm going to install it right about here with just enough of a lip showing that the acrylic board can sit right in there. The foam is going to have enough space for the board to actually sit on here, and we can apply our adhesive on here so that it has a nice strong grip all the way around. That's obviously too thick. Fix that, just trim it about that much. About as much foam as there's showing on the top is about how much I'll leave on the sides here. So let me show you the way that I'm going to do this. Let's start with the top. Plenty of room up here. I'm gonna measure out how much I need, trim it, peel the back to expose the adhesive, and then we are going to stick it just like that. That is perfect size for our LED board over there. So now we're gonna do it all along here. The only part that I'm a little nervous about is right through here because this is very thin. Now the good news is these are not gonna have any light bleed on the backside. All of these LEDs shoot up, so if there is no foam right there, it's not the end of the world. Okay, just like I thought, it is way too thin for any foam to be right there. If I try to put foam here, it's just gonna push the board up on this side, which could potentially hit the lens. That's the last thing we want. Now we can get this board set in place. We're gonna do that by using a couple of dots of the adhesive all the way around the top and the bottom. While these two lights are curing, I'm gonna go ahead and cut open the other side. Gotta be as efficient as possible. Okay, I've got this light ready to go into this lens. I've already cleaned out the inside. This one, I'm gonna go ahead and clean all the dust off and then set it inside. With that back housing on, I am now going to give it a quick little plastic weld and then test the LEDs to make sure everything is still working as it should. Now that we've got the boards inside the taillight assemblies, it is time to wire them up so that it is completely plug and play for the customer. The next step to building these lights is getting the OEM wire harness completely wired in to the taillight. So the way that I try to do this is make it completely plug and play for the customer. I'm gonna trim off all of the bulb sockets and the LED connector and wire them directly into the taillight. A few important things is that you will need to have your power supply so that you can test each circuit and know what each one does. The easy thing about this harness is that there's not very many wires on it since it doesn't have reverse or anything like that. So it's got a side marker light that is wired into the parking lights. So we know which one that's gonna be. It's got its own individual turn signal. So we know which wire that's gonna be. And the main brake light is LED, which has the parking lights, which we already know. So that makes the other power wire the brake light wire. Step 1 is going to be trim off all of this tape so that we can actually expose the wires. Now we have to test to see which circuits control the functions of the taillight. Let's start with this one. Got turn signal. Need to wire the turn signal wire to right here. Next up, brake. Take our brake wire, put it right here. Part here, and lastly, ground. I forgot to film siliconing the light. So I'm gonna recreate it using a trash lens and this pizza box. So right along this line is where we plastic welded the taillight. I'll just go ahead and add some silicone just like this. And then to make it look cleaner, I'll take my finger and run it across like that. And we will do that several times until all the excess is gone and all you have left is a nice clean silicone line, which would work a lot better if this wasn't a pizza box. Now they're all done and I have actually already shipped them out to the customer.